Good afternoon, members of the Daughters of the American Revolution and guests. Anyone who has watched the TV show Law and Order will be familiar with their Miranda rights that the police read to suspects when arrested. Most Americans trace these rights back to the Bill of Rights and the Constitution, but are often surprised to learn that these rights have even earlier origins in American history. To illustrate that, I've chosen two sources. James Alexander's The Arguments for the Counsel of the Defense and Jefferson's Arguments for Rights in British America. It should be noted that both of these documents were published prior to the Constitution's 1787 publication and even earlier than the Declaration of Independence 1776 publication. John Peter Zenger was a journalist and publisher of the New York Weekly Journal. New York Royal Governor William Cosby had Zenger arrested on charges of libel in 1734. Andrew Hamilton, who bears no relation to founding father Alexander Hamilton, was able to convince a jury that Zenger had not slandered the governor. Zenger had only printed the truth about corruption in government at that time. This case became a landmark case establishing the concept of freedom of the press in America. Okay, so the Bill of Rights to the Constitution argues in the First Amendment that Congress shall make no laws respecting an establishment or religion or prohibiting free exercise thereof or abridging freedom of speech. Okay, it's interesting to note that the primary source for this event was authored by James Alexander. Alexander was Zenger's original attorney for the case and was removed when he was found in contempt in the courtroom. Now, the title of the document mentions Rip Van Dam, not Zenger. Van Dam was in a battle with the governor himself, Cosby, and Zenger was the one who reported what the governor was doing that was an unethical tactic against Van Dam. The second source I bring to show about the origins of our rights as Americans is the Summary Review of Rights of British Americans, written in 1774 by Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson was compiling a list for the men of the First Continental Congress. Jefferson's aim was a list of all the complaints which they referred to as grievances against King George and his Parliament. The majority of these grievances came from British responses to the Boston Tea Party. The British claimed that the Boston Tea Party resulted in destruction of over $1 million of tea, which was the property of the king himself, and that the colonists should compensate the government for the destruction. The response by the colonists was, no, we're not going to. The response by the king was what we call the Intolerable Acts. These acts included taxes to recoup the loss of the property, shutting down the port, instituting martial law, and taking away the rights of the colonists. Jefferson's argument is we have rights that cannot be taken away by the king, and that the king is violating our due process rights. That right shows up in the Bill of Rights of the Constitution in the Sixth Amendment. In all criminal prosecution, the accused shall enjoy the right of a speedy and public trial. These two sources bring proof to us that our rights go farther back than the Constitution. It has been a pleasure speaking with you today. Hope to see all of you soon. Thank you very much.